Welcome to the South Australian Drought Hub podcast, strengthening drought resilience for our farmers and regional communities.
Learning from somebody else's experience is usually more effective if you can relate to them. And being of a similar age and career experience is very much part of that. G'day, I'm Drew Radford, and this approach is fundamental to 7 early to mid-career farmer groups that the SA Drought Hub has set up across the state. Their aim is to build knowledge, skills, confidence and connectedness among emerging farmers. In this episode, we'll delve into this with 3 of the groups, starting with the Peak and Keith Early to Mid-Career Farmer Group. It's facilitated by Felicity Turner, who, with her husband, crops as well as runs 3,500 merinos on a farm between Meningie and Canalpin. For the last 20 years, Felicity's also been consulting on sustainable agriculture. Central to this is the use of decision-making tools to identify trigger points that allow businesses to better manage dry times. She told me it's knowledge she's keen to share with the next generation of farmers.
We've got all sorts of things that we use, from computer programs through to soil moisture probes, and a lot of other technology or apps and things that we use in the business to try and make decisions. So part of this is, I guess, exposing some of the farmers to some of those things, but also finding out what they use. So a key part of the program is that peer-to-peer learning. So we try and combine some inside theory work with outside farm visits, where we look at different things and actually learn from each other, which is amazing. So it's a really good way and a really good model to try and get groups of farmers together and talking and learning from each other.
It sounds like you're covering a lot of ground with that, a lot of technology, a lot of different practices. How's the group responding to what they're saying?
Yeah, really good. It's really interesting, Drew. When we started this out, I thought, okay, coming out of 2 tough years, we're going to have lots of production-based concerns and they're going to want to upskill in some of those decision-making. But it's really interesting. Obviously, livestock and animal health and containment feeding has been a strong point or a focus of both groups. But also, it's really interesting to see the need or the request for more financial literacy. So information around business making decisions. So not just so much the production systems, but also how trying to upskill in trying to make better decisions around their farm businesses and their operations.
Felicity, when you ran the first workshop, what were some of the outstanding conversations or challenges you saw raised by the group in terms of planning for dry times and dealing with uncertainty?
The biggest eye-opener was the need for that financial literacy. So I think everyone's gone through 2 years and they've managed to survive, I guess, from a production perspective. But it's really, okay, hopefully we've got through that. Hopefully we've gone from dry times into sort of recovery, or at least uncertain times, but hopefully into recovery mode. And when we're in that recovery mode, how do we plan for the future? So how do we make sure that we're better versed to deal with, the future situations? So around, fodder budgeting is probably the key, but also financial reserves. Are we better off investing in the farm now or investing off farm for the future? So it's really interesting because for such a younger group of farmers, that their thoughts are, some are running their own businesses and others, I guess, have been driven or heard those so much around that financial conversation happening over the past 2 years, that constant negotiating with the bank, that they really want to upskill and work out how to do that bit better in the good times as well as in the poor times.
Indeed, it's always planning in the good times for the worst times, isn't it, for want of a better description?
Yeah, it is. And I think that's probably where everyone sort of, probably planned for 1 year of dry times, but then the second one really started to knock businesses around. So, you can try and buffer and plan for one, but the upper southeast is a relatively reliable area, and getting 2 shockers in a row was a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah, I imagine that's a bit of an understatement, Felicity. So, Felicity, how do you see their confidence Is it building? Is their business capability building? And more importantly, their drought resilience?
From a stock perspective, so livestock and feeding and fodder budgeting, yes, we've seen that increase. It's really interesting. The group at Peak, we've got one attendee who only crops, and he attended the livestock workshop. For him, it was a real eye-opener into, they do a lot of hay production in their business. So he still picked up skills, even though it wasn't sort of directly relevant to their business. So hopefully over the next couple of workshops, that sort of financial literacy will increase as well. But so far, we've had really good feedback on those that we've run. And look, it's been a bit challenging, Drew, because my background's actually in crop and pasture agronomy, and I've sort of got some livestock skills as well. So I really expected, like I said, that production focus to be where they wanted to build their skill set. And in saying that they wanted to build in that sort of financial literacy space has really challenged me to go away and to actually try and develop up programs and find the people that can actually help them get what they need out of the program.
So you're spreading the net wider beyond yourself?
Correct, yeah. So I am the group facilitator, and then I'll try and, if we need to, I'll pull in what we call subject matter experts. So someone that's better versed in some of those topics than I am, who can come in and really support the group. And between them, I'll sort of, try to get the best out of it and help work with the subject matter expert to ensure that the workshops have activities and that there's sort of something to do as well as something to see, so that the participants get the best out of it.
So lastly, Felicity, looking ahead, what success look like for your Peak and Keith groups past the end of the 4 workshops?
I think to me, success, Drew, is that there's a group of early to mid-career farmers that have expanded their networks. They've increased their skill set in those topics that they first identified, but also hopefully that they've built networks and that the group itself will start to continue on in some way, shape or form, so that they can keep those friendships and those relationships going. Because I think that's probably the greatest thing, is where we get farmers learning from farmers. I'm just there essentially to help support the conversation and to provide a few extra skills or top up a little bit when required.
Felicity Turner is not alone in her focus on helping farmers learn from each other. Several hundred kilometres north on the Adelaide Plains is where farmer and agronomist Michael Brougham works. He's also group facilitator of the Owen Early to Mid-Career Farmer Group. And he became aware of the need to connect the next generation of farmers so that they could learn from each other.
Farmers are getting bigger and bigger, and that means there's less and less young farmers, and we saw a need probably to connect them so that we could get the next crop of young farmers together and create a bit of a network.
You've worked with producers across a lot of different systems. What have you noticed about how young farmers approach risk and resilience?
Lots of farmers are shaped by their experience. You have a positive experience, you'll do it again. You have a negative experience, you won't do that again. And early in your career, you're not exposed to those negatives so often, and they're going to crop up all through a career. This group and targeting the younger group is upskilling them and making them more resilient for dry times. And droughts are one of those learning grounds. You learn from the droughts, you learn the positives and you learn the negatives. And I don't think that the younger generation haven't been exposed to some of those negative feedbacks. And it's a different climate at the moment. We've got expensive costs, land's expensive, inputs are expensive, machinery is very expensive. So the younger generation can be quite risk averse and happy to spend the money. But this younger group need to find their own path and find it together. And I think that's where this group brings that next generation together to have this discussion and build on decision making.
Do you think it's that small peer-to-peer group that helps them move from talking about ideas to actually implementing change within their businesses?
There's a couple of parts to decision making. Peer-to-peer learning, they brainstorm and hopefully they're sharing the negatives and the positives so they both don't make the same mistakes earlier in their career. But they're probably going through the same things so they can help each other work through problems on their farm, whether it's a fertiliser decision, whether it's a machinery issue. They can work through these problems together, and they probably can't find that information very readily because they're agricultural based and you can only get it from peer-to-peer learning.
Michael, looking ahead to the next dry period, What do you hope these farmers will be doing differently because of this program?
In agriculture, there are decisions that are made every day, and lots of them. And in dry times, when you're making a decision, it's harder to make decisions. So I want to be able to upskill them in the basics of a lot of things across agriculture, but we've started with grain marketing and agronomy. So the younger generation, if they're upskilled, they're more involved, more observant within a farm, they can go and speak to their brother or the parents within a business to help share the burden of making decisions, particularly in dry times. Sometimes in dry times, we end up making no decision. Should I put fertiliser on? Should I not? And then you have a discussion. Actually, don't put it on. But it's still a decision, and you've got to make a decision. And the more people that are skilled within a business to have comment, it'll make the decision easier.
That's Michael Brougham. In the southeast of the state resides the Narracourt Early to Mid-Career Farmer Group. It's facilitated by Dr. Mel Fraser, who's a farmer but also a consultant at Soil Function Consulting. Mel's passionate about the importance of healthy soil in primary production. So much so, she did a PhD in it, which sounds complex, but Mel has a unique ability to make the complex sound simple. She believes these career groups are important because the opportunity to learn from mentors and peers are becoming less and less.
I grew up in Adelaide, actually. My mum and dad are both off farms. And I didn't really know much about agriculture or farming other than the holidays I get to spend with my grandparents on their farm. And so when I finished school, I kind of came about agriculture by accident. My auntie and uncle offered me a job, and so I ended up kind of on a farm working, and then I discovered you could actually study agriculture, and so I graduated in 2001. So what's that, 25 years ago. So I've been working in ag. And so I guess for me now, I'm probably facing down the barrel of mid to late career, which is a little bit frightening. But when I graduated from uni, I actually I've worked in state government in Queensland and in the Northern Territory and in South Australia. And I was really blessed to have some amazing mentors who were also mid to late career. So within those organisations, there was an opportunity because, government then could kind of afford to employ a graduate, and you didn't have to be particularly productive. You just had to be kind of keen and willing to learn and willing to do the grunt work. But I got to sit shoulder to shoulder with so many amazing people, in cars and tractors and headers and what have you, and learn from them. And unfortunately, our state government departments don't offer those opportunities anymore. The mid to late career people are gone, like me. I left from the department 3 years ago and started my own consultancy. And I'm sort of more the norm these days. So there aren't many opportunities for young people coming into agriculture to actually sit and learn. And so it's really important that groups like the Drought Hub and our farming systems groups and our industry levy bodies, that they create opportunities for us to take early to mid-career farmers, advisors, consultants, agronomists, and bring them together as a group. They can learn from each other, but also I can start to impart some of my knowledge and actually pass it on. It's like passing on the baton. And so when these kinds of opportunities come up where you get to work with specifically with younger groups to help them learn shoulder to shoulder, but also as an opportunity to build relationships with them so they know they can come back, to me or to others for help or guidance in the future, that's just such a gift. So that's why I'm there. I'm really passionate about it.
I can hear the passion in your voice, and it's a wonderful thing because that's then going to rub off on the next generation. So what's your role within the group?
Well, it's an interesting one because I'm well known really as a subject matter expert, in the soil space. I do a lot of extension education with farmers particularly, but also agronomists as well. Support quite a cohort of them right across the southern region. And in this case, I'm there as a facilitator. So when you're a facilitator, you're not there to tell everybody what you know, but instead of answering questions, you need to be really good at asking questions and knowing what questions to ask both of the participants in the room, so the farmers that you're working with and advisors. We've got some agronomists in our group as well, which is excellent. And then also, if you have got another subject matter expert coming in to help with a specific piece of upskilling or knowledge, what questions to ask them as well, to draw out information from them that I know is helpful that maybe the participants themselves might not be brave enough to ask. And so I really love this role because it challenges me. I have to be really conscious of what hat I'm wearing when I step into that space. But it's a really great way that I get to learn and others get to learn from me. But I don't necessarily have to do all the work on the day in terms of the teaching, if you like.
Mel, tell me about DRINKS, which stands for Drought Resilience Information and Knowledge Sharing. What's that actually mean?
It's a process. It's a mapping process. It's a planning session where we actually get the farmers and the agronomists, our group together, and we step them through a mapping process to really get them to think about, okay, what activities happen in your farming businesses in a 12-month cycle? So we might have just finished harvest or we're still in the middle of harvest and shearing might be coming next. So what are the actual activities? And then we step them through, okay, we've identified what our activities are seasonally. So what are the actual decisions that we make around those activities? So, we might need to book the shearer and we might need to get the header serviced. But we're also coming into autumn, and so lots of people will be thinking about sort of feeding and what's going to happen in our next feeding window. When are we going to get a break? We haven't had much summer rain yet. How much feed have we got? So we know what our activities might be, but what's the decision around that? Well, how much will I need to feed? How much feed will I still have on offer? If I've just come out of a dry time, how much money have we actually got? How much can we afford to spend? And so the decisions that happen around each of those activities will actually change depending on where we are climatically. So if we've just come out of a really great time, money's good rainfall, good feed, good prices, everyone's feeling pretty cashed up, not a lot of stress, decisions can be really easy to make. But like we've just come out of 2 years of drought, dry times, here in the southern region, thankfully there's a lot of confidence around at the moment because we've had a good harvest and prices are good and we had some late rain, we've still got some feed on the ground. But it really changes the decisions that they make. And also, if we get prolonged tough conditions, it can also influence their ability to make those decisions. So the drinks process gets our young farmers actually sitting down and thinking about and mapping out what activities do we do, and then how do those decisions change depending on whether we're in good times, uncertain times, dry times or recovery times. And at the moment, I'd say we've just come into a recovery time. So there'll be some differences in the way that people make their investments in this coming 12 to 24 months.
After your first session, did you get some revelations about how young farmers were thinking about running their properties and approaching decision making?
We've got a really amazing group of early to mid-career farmers and advisors. Some of them have been born and bred in the district on the farm, might have gone away to uni for a couple of years and they've come back onto the farm. So they know their properties, inside out and backwards. We've actually got a lovely group, 50-50 men and women, which is fantastic to see. That's the other thing that's really changed for me from sort of 25 years ago where I might have been the only woman in the room, and now we're at least 50-50, which is great. We've got some other people who've gone off and done trades or have worked in completely different industries, healthcare, education, and are now coming back into the farm in their late sort of 20s, early 30s. And so they're really educated, very skilled people who've been applying their knowledge and their smarts in a different sector. And now they bring that back. And that to me is actually really exciting because they come with a whole different skill set. And so when we have the ability to put, say, someone who's come out of the healthcare sector next to someone who's been on the farm the whole time and has a lot of practical experience on the farm versus someone who's had maybe some leadership training, lots of professional development, particularly if you've had experience in the public sector. There's lots of leadership and personal development opportunities that come often in those jobs. So they come with a different skill set in terms of how they make decisions, how they communicate. When you can get these people in the room together, sharing the way they make decisions, there's so much gold. There's so much gold in those rooms that you can't help but walk away. I'm easy to cry. I can't help but walk away from days like that with lots of tears in my eyes and a big full heart.
They sound like phenomenal sessions which achieve a great deal. Looking ahead, what's the one key insight you hope participants will take away from the program?
I think it's really about them having the framework to assist them with their decision making. So they've laid out all their activities, they understand how their decisions change in, different seasonal conditions or climatic conditions. But, as they get old, so then, like I said, sort of mid-20s, early 30s, there'll be marriages and there'll be kids and there'll be succession planning and there'll be deaths, and there are all these other things that happen in your personal life as well as in your professional life that then can impact your ability to make good decisions. And then, of course, we've got the head, the heart and the gut that also pull us in different directions, particularly if we're in business partnerships with other people. We've got to make really big investment decisions, particularly where you're talking, millions of dollars. And then there's all sorts of personal, attachments as well to country. I'm a fifth generation farmer and there's a deep sense of pride that comes with that. When we have dry times, it can become incredibly difficult to know where to spend the money. And if our young farmers can walk away from this process in 12 months' time with a framework that they can follow to help them make decisions, whether it be how much feed to buy or whether to buy that new sprayer or whether to get a contractor, it can be big or little, but then also have the knowledge and the skills. So we've built up their financial literacy, we've built up their decision-making skills, we've upskilled them in things like feed budgeting and understanding animal nutritional requirements. We've gone through the latest in agronomic nutritional needs for our crops, for example. If we can get them skilled up in those things, then they can make more confident decisions. And there's no right or wrong decision or good or bad decision as long as you followed a framework and it was an informed decision at the time. So if we can get them to walk away with that confidence and a set of tools in their toolbox to help them in the future, to relieve a little bit of pressure, and also a network around them that they can go back to pick up the phone and go, hey, you know how we did that activity? What did you decide to do? That, to me, is a great indicator of success.
That success is occurring across the state, and it's thanks to the work of people like Felicity Turner, Michael Brougham, Mel Fraser, and many others who are participating in the 7 early to mid-career farmer groups.
And that concludes this podcast. You'll find more podcasts on the SA Drought Hub website at sadroughthub.com.au. The South Australian Drought Resilience Adoption and Innovation Hub is one of 8 hubs established across the nation through the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund. The SA Drought Hub is an exciting initiative which brings together a dynamic network of primary producers, industry groups, researchers, government agencies, universities, agribusinesses, farming systems groups, traditional owners and others to work towards a common vision to strengthen the drought resilience and preparedness of farms and regional communities in SA. Led by the University of Adelaide in partnership with the Department of Primary Industries and Regions South Australia, the Hub is responsible for driving the extension of existing knowledge and practices to build drought resilience in primary production systems. Any recommendations, suggestions or opinions contained in this publication do not necessarily represent the policy or views of the South Australian Drought Resilience Adoption and Innovation Hub, SA Drought Hub. No person should act on the basis of the contents of this publication without first obtaining specific, independent professional advice. The SA Drought Hub and contributors to this publication may identify products by proprietary or trade names to help readers identify particular types of products. The Hub does not endorse or recommend the products of any manufacturer referred to. Other products may perform as well as or better than those specifically referred to. The SA Drought Hub will not be liable for any loss, damage, cost or expense incurred or arising by reason of any person using or relying on the information in this publication.